Intro because this is not just going to be on Twitch. We'll get it up on YouTube later. All right. Hey, everyone. Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you are doing well in YouTube land. Thank you for tuning into this posted video of a wonderful exclusive live interview on Twitch. Check out our Twitch page. It's linked down below. We're going to be talking with the one, the only, the mastermind of the legendary Minecraft soundtrack, Mr. Daniel Rosenfeld, aka C418. Being 2021, it is essentially the 10-year anniversary of the release of that soundtrack, and I thought it would be interesting to hook up with Daniel, do a discussion about that very topic, but also what sort of sparked this entire thing is that you wrote a short series of tweets recently reacting to the fact that I would rate the soundtrack like an 8 or so, and how you sort of disagreed with that. If you could give people who are watching a bit of a background on that opinion, what initially were you kind of reacting to in terms of what I thought and what were your thoughts?
So I was listening to the new Avalanches album, and I was like, wow, these guys have done so much work on this stuff, and it must have taken so much life effort to just get this album out. And then I listened to your reviews, and you were like kind of like lukewarm about the whole thing. And I was like, shit, it's really hard to make a good album, isn't it? If they get like a 5 or whatever it was, like, how do I make good scores? I don't understand, you know? There's a lot of like self-criticism in that as well. Like, give me 1 second. I'm going to be unprofessional for 1 minute.
1 whole minute? Go for it. It's live. It's live, y'all. Here we go. Wow. This was unforeseen. Beautiful dog.
What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. I think... Are you going to be okay? Yeah. I thought, like I look at the Minecraft album now, and like you say, it's like almost 10 years old, and that's shocking. And like I look at like what I'm working on now, and I compare it to Minecraft, and I'm like, I was such an amateur. That was a different life. There's so many flaws that like I would have never done nowadays. And that's, I guess, how I like got to the point of like, it must be hard to get like a good opinion from like critics, you know?
I suppose it can be. I think, let's talk about the project itself. I mean, what about it do you feel like maybe has kind of changed your opinion about it a little bit over the years? Do you feel like it hasn't aged quite so well? Or as you were just referring to, do you feel like you're just in a different place artistically and you just sort of, view it through a certain lens because your technique, your style, your abilities are not really what they were at that time?
It's hard to say. So when I wrote Minecraft Alpha, I didn't really make ambient music yet, So like I didn't really understand the whole ambient genre. So like for me, it was kind of like if I approach this, I guess I'll just be as minimal as possible and use as few things as possible to get my idea across.
Well, didn't your previous releases dabble in a bit of ambient music as well?
Sure, but I was just like an amateur trying to figure out how that shit works, Yeah. But like I never really considered my field, the thing that I'm good at, to be ambient. I always like assumed like, because like I have more roots to Berlin, so I was kind of like more into the house music and that kind of like realm, and like figuring out like where I exactly fit, which I guess also got me to be very eclectic because I didn't really truly understand what I am good at, so I did everything at the same time. So that's where my eclecticism comes in, and I still do that today. Like I might make like one album and I try my best to be one genre, and then I still can't do it entirely.
Well, so when going into the creative process of the project itself, you already had it in mind to go in an ambient direction before everything was even sort of like finalized?
Yeah, that's 2009, right? So at that time, Minecraft was considered indie still because Microsoft didn't own it.
Yeah.
So at that time, indie games music was actually, there was really just one kind of music, and that was chiptune. And that was the one thing that I was desperately trying to avoid, partially because I wasn't good at making chiptune, but also because I was tired of it. So like I tried my darndest to like do something like that, like was kind of like weird and like unexpected. And I think to this day, people open Minecraft for the first time and they don't understand why the music is the way it is, you know? And I like that contrast, the like kind of like shock of like, oh, this is a not super pretty game, but like the music is what's going on? And that kind of like captures people a little bit. I love that.
Well, what do you feel like people are not really getting or not expecting as far as a soundtrack when they play or they think of Minecraft?
See, like it's really hard to like figure out what the cliche of nowadays is, but like I would assume people would assume something Pixar-esque or like something like Sunday morning Disney movie kind of like vibe, like the happy schmappy orchestra stuff. And that's absolutely not what you get. You get like kind of like sad, melancholic, very minimalistic stuff. I think that it's just a very left field, and I like kind of like going like just like subverting people's thoughts of what the music can be. I always like that.
Yeah, I mean, giving my own take here, because partially we're here because of, you know, you responding to my own thoughts on sort of the project and sort of why I would rate it higher. I consider it, you know, an interesting piece of art. I mean, I think at this point, after playing or having played the game for so long, I can't really imagine it with any other soundtrack. You know, it just wouldn't be Minecraft if it had something like dun 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 dun, something like that. And I feel like the very open, ambient, almost, you know, a lack of structural definition in the music, I think reflects the open world sandbox type gameplay perfectly, you know, because it's like, you know, the game itself doesn't have a linear movement as far as like what you want to do, what you have to do. Why should the music, you know, the game should be, or the music should be as meditative and as much representative of a sense of place as opposed to a composition in a way, you know, in a technical sense, as the game itself is, you know, and in that sense, and in the fact that the aesthetics of the game are so rudimentary. I mean, you say at this point, you know, there are some techniques and sounds that maybe you wouldn't work with, things that you wouldn't do at this point because you've progressed past that stage. But I think the rawness and the bareness and the simplicity of the music represents the pixelation and the squareness and, you know, those aspects of the game itself. Now, I will say, in the defense of your soundtrack, I think the aesthetics of the music are a little more nuanced and subtle than I think, you know, the blocky and square, you know, art of the game. But, you know, I think they're in a similar kind of ballpark, you know, which is why I think it's so complimentary. I mean, a lot of people over the years have asked me and sort of complimented quite a bit or commented quite a bit about the lack of soundtrack reviews on my channel and why don't I review more soundtracks. And part of the reason why is that, you know, I think partially the magic of a soundtrack is unlocked in how well it complements what it's paired to. You know what I mean? I feel like if I were to take Volume Alpha just completely out of context of the game itself, like, sure, it would make sense and you could easily define it as ambient music, but I feel like the real magic of these pieces is sort of, you know, washes over you as you're kind of interacting with them within the game space.
The context does matter, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, while maybe at this point as, you know, a seasoned electronic musician and composer, you might just sort of like look at this piece out of context of sort of what it sort of was introduced to people with, and say, you know, these are not the types of pieces I would make now. But as people's, you know, points of view are kind of seeing that through the lens of the game, I think it sort of makes sense as to why the acclaim was and still remains to this day to be so high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that. And also, like, a lot of, like, it's also very interesting because Minecraft is such a phenomenon now that, like, of course, nobody would expect any kind of different music because I burnt it into everyone's mind if I wanted to or not. And also, like, a lot of the music is the limitation of, like, my lack of knowledge on how to do sound design back then, and also Marcus's lack of knowledge on how to do sound engines, right? So that's why the music is sparse and minimalistic, is because we didn't know how to implement it. We never knew where the player was at any time of the game because, like, everything is randomly generated. So I just decided, let's just play it randomly and see what happens. And shockingly, it works. because a story I hear from a lot of people, like to this day, like every day I get an email about this, that they would just play the game and like dig straight down or like dig a tunnel and do something really mundane, and randomly a song would come in, and suddenly this boring task is the most beautiful thing they've ever done in their life.
Some of the pieces do bring very tedious moments in the game, almost like a sense of purpose. I will say that. Looking back on, the ambient direction of the soundtrack, even though it was something that you say yourself wasn't necessarily your prime genre or style at the time, were there still like artistic inspirations that you might have been taking from, be it like a Brian Eno, big names in ambient, something like that?
Yeah.
When you were thinking of the style and the genre?
Yes, but the inspirations that I took are not what you expect. Because the inspirations I took were stuff like Aphex Twin and Mouse on Mars or Chris Clark, like things that are generally fairly loud. But what I took were like the like dissonance and the weirdness in their melodies, or like I feel like Aphex Twin especially. I don't think he can play piano, and it's obvious because he puts so much energy into melodies. Like he actually, I think he worked, like he types it into his keyboard, like computer keyboard. And like, because he does that, the melodies are so like pronounced and like so thought of, because he can't just improvise it. And that like, I took that to heart. I think I took that to heart so much that in an interview, Aphex Twin said, that sounds like my music, which is really funny in hindsight.
Thinking about your techniques and the sort of things that, you're able to do today in the music that you're recording, and looking back on what you did 10 years ago on the soundtrack, are there some things or pieces that when you listen back to them, you're like, I really want to change that? Like if I could go back in time, I would tell myself, this has to be different. I would do it a different way. Or do you feel like at this point it just kind of stands as is?
I think it stands as is, but let me just bring it up. Now here's a shocker. I don't remember my album songs.
It's fine.
I have to bring them up. So a song that a lot of people like is on the Alpha song is I think the second one called Door. I don't like it. It's too happy schmappy, too like plastic orchestra. I would have done it like professionally, more emotional, but people like it, so there's not much I can do about it. I'm not George Lucas, so I'm never going to change it, so it is as it is, and people seem to enjoy it for what it is.
I think that's a beautiful attitude. I think another important thing to note since this soundtrack came out is that video game soundtracks have undergone quite an evolution since that point. As you say, prior to that, most indie games just had chiptune soundtracks, which was certainly the case. But since this game has come out, I mean, not just indie games, but big blockbuster games have soundtracks that are pushing boundaries. They're going into more cinematic places, big budget places, more experimental and abstract places. I mean, since Minecraft, there have been so many other popular games, especially on the indie side, that take a more ambient tone with, their instrumentation. Considering all of that change and evolution since then, like where do you see the soundtrack now in the greater scheme of video game soundtrack art? Do you feel like it kind of started something, or was at least at the forefront of something?
It's a really good question. I think this goes like answering this question is like a little bit of narcissism and a little bit of hope. Like if you take Breath of the Wild, for example, like it does sound a little bit like my stuff, and like I would like to hope that they like played Minecraft and they were like, this is kind of cool. I'm going to do like a lot of piano stuff, and that like I inspired it a little bit, but who the hell knows? Probably not. I'm just hopeful in that regard. But like I do think a lot of games are like much more gentle in its pronunciation on the music, because like, I don't know, if you take The Witcher 3, that game has music. The music never shuts up, and it gets very boring. Like, almost disrespectful to the artist, because like if the music never stops, you don't ever have time to think about the music. And I think a lot of games do think about that now, that like silence is very important almost as important as the music itself. So I hope artists and like programmers and game devs thought about that more because of Minecraft.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty interesting the way it's applied to the game itself, where the pieces. I mean, when you look at the soundtrack and you sort of bunch all of these tracks one on top of the other, some of them do contrast quite a bit, like aesthetically and in terms of tone, but they're applied in the game in such a way where they're sort of coming in and out in this very incognito way. So, like when a piece does come on, it doesn't butt up against something that, you know, the game almost gives you time for the previous bit to wash out of your mind, and then when the next one comes in, it's like, oh wow, that's it's like getting a hit of something in the middle of the game.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah. Yeah. Again, like what I thought was very important is the melodies. The melodies are like simple and like they burn into your brain. And like if that is the case, it doesn't really matter what the rest of the music sounds as long as like you remember the melody.
Because a lot of people who watch this stream are on the creative side of things, I thought it would be interesting to ask you, how exactly did you land this job, you know, like get this connection and find yourself in this position where unknowingly at the time you're creating one of the most popular video game soundtracks of the modern era.
Yeah, like the way I did it is very non-applicable to nowadays standard. Actually, I don't know.
In most cases, I think people's come-ups and successes in the music industry are usually like, you know, unique, one-of-a-kind situations, but still, right. I mean, I feel like you could probably lend some insight.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it is also very approachable in its mundanity. So the way I got the gig is I was writing music as kind of like a hobby, and I was in a IRC channel, which I guess is like the Discord or Slack of back then, called TIG Source, which is a forum for indie games, which I guess nowadays isn't as big anymore. But to understand where TIG Source comes from, a lot of people probably know Spelunky, and the creator of Spelunky was like helming TIG Source at the time. So like in 2008, 2009, it was kind of like a breeding ground for a lot of like big indie games, like Edmund McMillan's Meat Boy or Phil Fish's Fez and Marcus's Minecraft, obviously. So I hung out in the IRC channel and like chatting about and like sharing my stuff. And Marcus was exactly doing the same thing. And I guess we just butted heads and like it kind of clicked. And Marcus wanted my music in his game. It is as mundane as that, but yeah, I guess it is very approachable because I'm pretty sure there are Discords nowadays where you could probably achieve a similar situation.
Sure. I mean, it's a matter of creating and just putting your stuff out there as effectively as you can. And, you know, obviously not just like throwing it out there into the nothing on Twitter, but finding specific places where communities that are looking for certain things are hiding out and sort of like placing it there.
Yeah, exactly. I see that a lot, that like artists try to like basically cold call people and just go like, here's my music, please use me, I'm desperate for a gig. And the fact of the matter is that's not how it works. Developers usually look for you, and it's not the other way. Like if you get a gig by cold calling someone, you're incredibly lucky. So it's more about like make yourself known and like just share your stuff for free and see like where you get with that.
Yeah. And let's also like make note of the fact that, you know, you weren't like pitching your soundtrack to Rockstar and you were like, hey, make sure like, you know, please, like whatever your next game is, like, please put my stuff in it. You know, you were applying or sort of like volunteering your stuff for a game that you had no idea was going to be successful at the time. So you
exactly.
You were just like reaching out and sort of like on a whim and a prayer, just being like, I kind of want to work with anybody, and any sort of like experience is going to do me well, whether sort of whether this pops off or it brings me a job into the future that pops off.
Yeah, and what is even more important to know is that at the time, I never ever assumed that making music is going to make money. I had a job. It was an awful job, but I had a job, and it was a lot of security. So like, if this gig is going to be useless or like nothing is going to come out of it, that's fine because I still have a living. I'm not going to like lose anything because of it.
I mean, speaking of making money off of what you do. Before we got started, you were talking about making some stuff off of Spotify streams with your music. I mean, Spotify streams and streaming in general, I mean, has become a very controversial thing, especially in the COVID era, where many artists have been kind of stripped of their ability to perform live and make ends meet that way. I mean, as far as streaming goes, like, is that proven to be an effective model for you, not only in terms of like what you generate off of this soundtrack, but your other projects too that you put out for your own pleasure that aren't connected to a gaming franchise?
Yeah, so I'm not really an artist that goes out and plays my music live. I'm just not that talented in that realm. So I actually put a lot of work into like putting my music online and like letting people listen to it in any way they want. And Minecraft is a really rare case in that, like, I guess people like the music so much that they like to use it to fall asleep or just like listen to it at work, because like there are no like I don't put any like lines in it. There's nobody saying anything. So like, and it's like very calm. It's never loud. And I think that's really helpful. And I think that resonated for people, especially like in 2020, because anything that is a good distraction is a good, Dougie, anything that is a distraction is a good distraction, you know? So Minecraft has worked out really well for that on Spotify, especially. And I consider myself extremely lucky in that regard. And I also find that as any streaming service is really volatile, and I might be making money today, but who knows what's happening in the future. So I never take it for granted. It is such a scary field to be in. I actually have a full-time job right now because I don't trust it for one day.
I mean, as far as I'm not familiar with the numbers right now, but are you aware of on the numbers and like what are off of streams like considered to be the raw sales of the album at this point? Is it gold or going close to gold? Do you feel like it could go platinum at some point?
What does that mean? What is gold?
like apparently, if you do X amount of like, if you're working with a label, they should be telling you this.
Yeah.
Like, if you're getting X amount of streams on a record, that counts as a single sale.
So I think
if you get 500 sales off of a record, that'll be a gold record. If you get 1 million sales off a record, that'll be a platinum record. And I don't know if people are streaming it as often as you're saying to even go to sleep.
I think I've heard that like people are referring 100 million streams to being basically gold, and then 1 billion is platinum. And I guess Sweden on Spotify is 70 million. So. Oh, my manager's saying is that we could calculate that.
Okay, yeah. If the manager is on the horn right now watching, have him calculate that, please. Get us.
Sure. Because I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, it's. I mean, obviously, this is a special case, and Minecraft is a certain kind of cultural phenomenon. But it is rare that you see an album in the ambient genre seeing so much commercial success. Be it attached, even if it is attached to a gaming franchise. Artistically speaking, do you feel like you're operating, or do you have more of a view or a passion for, I don't know, what's going on artistically generally in the electronic scene, the ambient scene, or sort of like the video game soundtrack scene at this point, before we get into some viewer questions?
Yeah. Oh boy. So the past year I've been working at a game studio, and that is relevant because what I've been doing there is like, I've been trying to make music that, like, for example, I had in Minecraft, like, if anyone played Minecraft, like has gone to the end, it's like a 10-minute piece that like references all the songs that have been in the game before. Like as an example, I can make that in real time now, randomly generated, and that's what I'm very interested in. And like music that like you can generate in real time, because now we have the processing power for it. And that I think that's where I want video games to go, like music that actually reacts to everything you're doing in a not just because like, oh, you shot somebody and now like loud music is coming in, but like actually reacting in a clever way that makes it interesting. Almost like what I want to see in video games is that the music reacts in like essentially that there's a a composition that like people don't even realize that it's reacting to everything you're doing. That's what I want to see. and then and ambient. Like I'm not so deep in ambient, but like chill electronica. There's a lot of interesting things going on. Gosh, there's an artist that I've been following lately that I'm just obsessed with. Oh yeah, Dorian Concepts.
Okay.
He's a dude who he has lyrics in his songs, but you'd never hear what he's saying, and that's not the point. The point is that he's using his voice as an instrument, and that just blows my mind. That like it doesn't matter that he's singing; it matters that it's an instrument. And wow, I love that kind of stuff. I want to see more music that just like uses the voice as like just a weird thing, and not as like a haiku machine, you know.
Quickly before I comment on everything that you just said, I would make a few recommendations.
I will write it down.
Most Sigur Rós albums. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yeah, Sigur Rós, yeah.
And I would say Björk Medulla, if you haven't listened to it.
I haven't listened to her new stuff.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of great Björk albums, and most people would, contest that album is not even her best. But what makes it significant is that a majority of the instrumentation is just voice. It's her voice. She hires a chorus, and they're doing percussion with voice. They're doing, baritones. They're doing tenors.
I love it.
It's just like a chorus, just a menagerie of vocals. Björk, Medulla. Listen to it. Having said what you just said, before I get into the viewer questions, it makes me want to sort of dig into this a little bit further. I mean, at this point, and I know you've released quite a bit of solo stuff since, Volume Alpha has come out, and maybe this, requires you going a bit deeper into what you're doing currently at this gaming studio. But what are your own personal artistic ambitions at this point? Do you at some point plan to, or do you hope to, just like release some record that dives solely into progressive house or IDM or some kind of chill electronica strain and focus on that and get rave reviews, be it critically acclaimed? Or do you feel like your passion lies more in kind of pushing the boundaries of video game soundtracks?
I want to make something that satisfies me. And that sounds selfish as hell, but with everything that I've put out so far, I've never gone to the point where I'm like, just like, yeah, this is so good. I want to try something that I want to listen to, and that sounds like saying that sounds easier than you think, considering I'm a composer and everyone thinks I'm good. But no, it's incredibly hard. Like, it is so hard. And so like when it goes to solo albums, I will probably do some more like housey stuff, because like I still haven't cracked that nut. I still want to make something that I'm like, oh, this is just song 1 to 10. It's just really solid, and I wanna figure that one out. But when it comes to video game stuff, I think I'm doing great. I think I'm doing like groundbreaking stuff, but that'll take a while. So there's not. Yeah, like I was saying with Minecraft, like I didn't know how to like use like sound engines and like have dynamic stuff. Like now I'm actually learning that stuff, and like apparently the sound engine that I chose, I broke so many times that they had to fix it for me, because like I'm doing stuff that they didn't know is possible or didn't know that actually isn't possible. So, like, yeah, there's very few full-time composers in game studios, and I'm abusing that as much as I can.
Speaking of your solo stuff and your creative process behind that, talking about getting to that point where you're making an album 1 to 10, solid, does that imply that at this point, when you are making a solo album, you can't sort of put your nose to the grind too hard or put yourself in that perfectionist mindset too much, or else you'll get nothing done? Like, is there a certain point where you're working on a piece and you're like, I know it's maybe not as perfect as it could be. I don't know what would bring it there, but I have to let it go at this point, because if I don't, I'll just be stuck in this phase forever.
Exactly. Sometimes I make a song and I'm like, this is okay. This is decent. It's not what I want, but the quantity is there. And at some point I need to continue with my life, and I'll just do that. Yeah. So like, there's a lot of that sometimes where like I re-listen to Excursions, and there's like 4 songs where I'm like, that wasn't necessary, dude.
Okay. I think we'll get into some viewer questions right now. We have some interesting ones. Bull Human wants to know, and maybe this will be something to talk about, considering that earlier you said that you're still working like a full-time job because you don't trust you don't trust things. But outside of that though, how do you feel like life has altered or changed for you? Pre and post the Minecraft phenomenon.
Well, I have financial stability, which is really nice. So I don't make money off of Minecraft, but like I'm in the weird position that I own the music. Like I have 100% like all of the rights of it. Like I do like, because like people like to stream it for work or whatever. I make money with Minecraft, the music, not the game. And so like financial like stability is like I'm doing okay. Like if I lose my job, I'll be probably fine, and that's really nice.
Prim Noise wants to know, which of your non-Minecraft projects do you feel is like your personal favorite?
Oh, that's hard. I think it would be one, because so it used to be a soundtrack, but like I when I wrote the album, like when I was done with making the soundtrack, I was obsessed with making the album good, and I think it's really solid. I think like what I like to do is like I like to put, even if it's not, so I like to put leitmotifs in songs, even if there's no reason for leitmotifs, to like basically to burn a melody in your brain, and like I keep like referencing like melodies in that album, and I think the way I do it, it seems to work really well so that at the end of the album you know exactly everything very well. You know that feel like when you listen to a song and you don't quite know it yet, and you have to re-listen to it a few times. And I hope that I kind of like skipped that part with one.
Plasma Earth wants to know if at this point, is there still a third volume of the soundtrack in the works, or are you still, have you just kind of moved on to other things?
That's hard to say. I have something. I consider it finished, but things have become complicated, especially because Minecraft is now a big property. So I don't know. The answer is I don't know. And I think I can't talk much more than that about that.
Cardboard would like to know, outside of your own preference for maybe a more casual roadmap to video game soundtracks, are there any bombastic or jaunty songs or OSTs that you really respect, be they classic or modern, just like soundtracks that really kind of stand out to you as just being, favorites or perfect generally?
I mean, the one game that has been burned into my mind is Fez. That is like, I could return to the music, and Rich Wieland has nailed the game really, really well. It doesn't get better than Fez, honestly.
Anything else you'd like to just sort of drop a mention on?
Gosh, see, like when you make games, you stop playing games, and it's really frustrating. Like I played Cyberpunk, but I actually don't love the soundtrack, because what I've realized is that the entire soundtrack is in one key. Every single song is one key, and a composer friend of mine explained why that is, and I'm still like, huh? But there's like one song that I really like about it. It's still like the Keanu Reeves song.
Is that probably in soundtracks generally, yes, but in the video game soundtrack world also, is that kind of a rarity? Is that sort of a weird anomaly for everything?
No. Ubisoft does it with almost every like Far Cry. I think it's like it is a necessity if you don't have a full-time composer. It basically makes it easier to like make the, like if you go to the menu and it has like a hum or something, it's really easy to synchronize that. So it's kind of like a laziness slash we didn't have the time to do it.
Yeah, which is weird. It sort of sounds like you're just fudging it.
Yeah, that's what I see. That's what I feel.
Luke on Demand YT wants to know, would you be willing to return to more songs with lyrics as seen on your album 148? Is that something that you're interested in doing more in the future? You were talking about sort of applying more vocals to stuff.
I should try more lyrics, but what I learned about myself, the thing that I'm not good at, and it's probably because English is not my first language, is that I'm not good at writing lyrics. So I find a friend who's like really good at it, or I just do the kind of stuff where like it's more about using the voice as a weird thing, as like a key to something else.
Triumph XD wants to know, why not C418?
Listen, dude, I had this nickname ever since I was like 16. It's over, dude. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if you're willing to talk about it, what's the origin of that nickname?
I think it was just my brother had this nickname. It was C818, and I was like, I want to have that too. So I was C418, and I felt so clever, but there's nothing clever about it.
Blue Shroom 666 wants to know what are your opinions on re-releasing previous albums on physical medias? I mean, I know that you mostly work as an independent artist. I'm not aware of how much of your stuff, and you've put out quite a few albums over the years. Like how much of it is in print, how much of it is not at this point.
I find print is a labor of love. Like Minecraft Alpha is a fairly successful vinyl release. Like it goes on top lists all the time, and it doesn't make as much money as you think it does. I cannot make a living with the sales on the vinyl alone.
Yeah, there's so much overhead at this point.
Yeah, so I can consider like making more physical releases, but like it is quite an effort, and like it does take time, and like it costs money. It doesn't actually make money. So yeah, but like also like vinyl is really complicated because I don't know when to stop writing music. My albums are very long, so like I always have to cut stuff, and I hate cutting stuff. So it's a complicated problem. Like the Minecraft Volume Beta I just released on vinyl, and I think it's like a 140-minute album, and putting that on vinyl is, oh boy. Vinyl is such a complicated format because it kind of sucks. It sucks, but it's also very beautiful and very fun because the way you have to make masters of vinyls is in a way so the needle doesn't jump. So you have to make it warm, and that's why people think vinyl sounds better because it's warmer. But it's not. We're just trying to do not destroy your needle. That's really the end goal. Yeah, it's an interesting format.
Are you wearing AKG 240s right now?
Yes, I think so. I also have the AKG 712s. I haven't used these.
They look like AKGs, but are maybe it's a different model. Yeah, I don't know if those are maybe a more modern 240. I don't know, but I've been a proponent of those headphones for a while.
271 Mark II.
Okay, I've been a proponent of those headphones for a while, and you know they don't sound as sort of like aggressively bassy as like a Beats, you know.
Yes, they are they try to be very flat in a very boring way, which is exactly what you want to make music.
Yeah. It's why it's so good to mix on them, and I think like a lot of people don't exactly get that. And honestly, like when you're at least for me personally, when you're reviewing, I feel like that's almost a preference as well, because I mean, you know, I have shit around. If I want to boost the bass, I can. But the thing is, like, if your mix is so fucked up that I have to do crazy shit to the bass just for it to sound good, I kind of need to know that, you know?
Yes, exactly.
So, okay, good on you with the AKGs. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just AKG is unfortunately dead now. That is a development that I only realized last year. I think who bought it? Samsung bought them.
Oh, did they?
And then AKG, the Swiss company or Austrian company, they left. The whole like engineering team left. So you can still buy these, and they're still going to be the same tech, but the company is gone. Yeah,
and what they'll do from this point to develop anything new, who the hell knows?
They actually just released a headphone. I haven't tried it yet, but people like it.
Okay. All right. This next one is a bit of a production nerd one. Go Gimyis. That's the best I can pronounce this person's name. I'm sorry. They want to know, what are some of your favorite VST plugins?
Right now, I use a heck of a ton of Omnisphere, which is just a big box of everything. Like if you really need to write something really fast, you open up Omnisphere, they will probably have what you need. And FabFilter, I use FabFilter for everything. They are very good for mixing and mastering.
This next person, Angelo's Aldog wants to know, how did you come up with the Aquatic Soundtrack?
So I came up with the Aquatic Soundtrack because... well, actually, like it was partially like the Mojang team was like, we want these kind of songs, and like one of them was obviously the Donkey Kong underwater song. So I was like, all right, you want slow beats?
Oh my god, it's so amazing. Like the late stage popularity that some of the tracks off the Donkey Kong soundtrack have gotten over the years.
Right?
I mean, I myself have the Donkey Kong 2 soundtrack on vinyl. Somebody did it on bootleg and just vinyled out the whole soundtrack. But it's amazing how some of those tracks have like caught on, and some people seem to think like a lot of those cuts are like proto vaporwave and everything. It's kind of crazy.
Speaking of vaporwave, so what I did is I wrote these songs, and then they were like, "We wanted more Donkey Kong," and what I did was I took the songs,
Daniel,
and I slowed them down. So I just slowed them down a little bit, and just like more highs, and that's it. And it worked. They were happy, and everyone was happy.
Here you go, same shit, slowed down. It's more Donkey Kong for you.
It's a different song.
That's also inadvertently another little jobber production tip for the producers out there who might be working on a job. If the gaming team comes back and says, "Look, we want it more Donkey Kong," just slow it down and send it back.
And put more hi-hats or something that sounds vaguely different.
That's incredible. I'm so happy that I asked you that. Oh my God! I'm sorry. I'm a little taken aback by how funny that response was. But it also makes me wonder, like, how much of the creative process of the soundtrack was, you directly like, I'm just imagining in my head, this is how the game has to sound, like I'm reacting to the game itself, the aesthetics of the game, what I imagine a soundtrack for the game should be, or, like your other work, do you feel like creatively you were pulling from a lot of personal experiences, going for certain, like, emotional vibes that you felt were appropriate?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, the thing I struggle the most with is the beginning of a project. Like every time I start a new project, I feel like I don't know how to write music. Like I'm a complete amateur again, and like I lost the touch. And like I just run around in cities and just like walk around and like I'm in my head and I'm like, what do I need? And like that'll go on for a month until like I like find a melody that I really like. And only after I have a melody, I'm like, okay, this is the thing I can base myself around of. This is the thing that I can expand the rest of the universe around. That's only then I can actually start writing. But like getting from zero to that point is such a huge struggle. Like every single time I think I just suck at making music. It's every single time.
When you get in that place where I imagine this sort of almost may even lead to a feeling of writer's block in a way, like what do you do to push past that?
So there's this trick that I've heard once that like if you are in deep writer's block and you just feel like anything you do, nothing is going to be good, try at least for 10 minutes today to just write anything, just for 10 minutes. What the heck? And then you just go to sleep. And like, oftentimes I write something, I go like, this sucks. And then like a week later, I listen to it back and I'm like, actually, there's something here. I can build upon this. And then like, you go past the problem of the empty piece of paper because you already have something written on the paper, so you can keep writing on that. And that trick helps a lot for me. But this is not a magic pill. Like writer's block is such a complicated thing. Like I have to do something new every single time to get around it, and it's never the same. But that one helps a lot. If I just have something to work on from tomorrow, even if it's garbage, then I can at least do something.
Isaac Cap wants to know, and I don't know if you've talked about this before. I don't know if this is inadvertently going to create any beef here, but he wants to know, what are your thoughts on Gareth Coker's Minecraft music?
I actually I haven't listened to it.
Okay, there you go. That's beef right there. That's disrespect.
Okay. There is some beef here in that, like, okay, the reason why Gareth wrote the music is because the company in charge of Minecraft at the time, which wasn't Mojang, was some different company, they wanted to make 2 different DLC and they wanted to like have a full soundtrack for each. And I am an enemy of crunch. Like crunch, I think, is the worst thing that has is in this games industry. So like I wrote like the soundtrack for one DLC, but I refused to write anything else for the other. And then they hired Gareth. So as like a younger Daniel, I was like, meh, somebody else wrote the music for Minecraft, and that's why I never listened to it. But I played Ori, which Gareth composed, and it's brilliant. So it doesn't matter what he wrote because I know whatever he wrote is good. So yeah.
Thank you for expounding upon that. Man, I think we're kind of heading to the end here. You've been a great guest and an open book, and I just appreciate you coming through and just being so frank and honest about this stuff. And I don't know, in a weird way, I appreciate you coming on and celebrating the 10th anniversary with me with this interview that you weren't planning on having when you decided to tweet about this.
I didn't even know there was an anniversary coming up.
Yeah. So do you feel like at this point you just like lost track of all of that time and you're just like, yeah, it's whatever?
I lost track ever since we had a pandemic. It's 2021. What?
Yeah. Yeah,
nothing makes sense anymore.
It's 2021 miraculously, and I hope everyone gets what they want in that this year is vastly different from the previous one. However, I fear that we're in for another round of insanity. I don't know. I feel like we're getting off to a bad start already, considering the events of the day.
Only in America, though. Everything else is working as it should.
I think maybe what we might end up finding is that 2021 just ends up being like the sequel to 2020. It's not a different movie. It's just the sequel on steroids, and it's like, oh fuck!
It's the Terminator 2 of Terminator.
Yes, it's
the good one.
Is there anything that you have coming down the pipe or around the corner that you want to mention or push or just kind of make people aware of as we?
No, just chilling, just hanging. Yeah,
you're just chilling. Well, I appreciate you taking that precious chilling time to talk with me and talk with us, and again, we appreciate you coming through.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, hey, have a good night with your significant other, and especially that dog. Pet that dog for all of us because that was a beautiful dog.
Let me bring him up here.
Yeah, one more time, the dog one more time before we go. We got to get one more with that dog. Yes.
Ugh.
Yes.
This little baby boy.
Oh. Now is that considered a collie? Is that a collie?
This is a Pembroke Welsh Corgi.
Got it. Okay.
He has tiny stub legs. Look at this.
So cute. So precious.
Yeah.
Oh.
Are you tired?